Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this video we're going to look at the foreign exchange market. So you can see here the foreign exchange market is the market for a country's currency, right? So it's the supply and demand for whatever currency that country has, right? Whether it's dollars or yen or Canadian dollars, whatever the pesos, whatever kind of currency it is. So what I wanted to do first is go ahead and just draw the graph for a foreign exchange market and then talk a little bit more about what supply means, what demand means in the market. Okay, very similar to how we've done other graphs, particularly in macro. So, once again, we do have, our axes here. And so what we're going to put on the x-axis is the quantity of whatever currency is being supplied and demanded, if you will, in this market. And so we'll say, to keep it simple here, this is the market for dollars. So we're going to say this is the quantity of dollars. And you can abbreviate that with a capital Q if you wish. Now, the y-axis is a little trickier for students because remember, for the y-axis, this is just another market for a good or service, in this case, currency. This would be the price of currency. In other words, what is the price of a dollar? That's the question here, right? What is the price of a dollar? Well, the price of a dollar is whatever currency people have to give up in order to get the dollars, right? So if they're Mexican people who want dollars, they have to give up their pesos. If it's Europeans who want to give up or who want dollars, they have to give up their euros, right? So we'll use euros as the example here. And so on the y-axis, what we would put is euros per dollar, right? Sometimes instead of the word per, you'll see a slash. So euros slash dollar. That means per. And so what this is saying is the price of a dollar is however many euros people are going to pay in order to get a dollar, right? That's what we mean by the price of a dollar in this case. So, and then for supply and demand, you'll be relieved to know it's downward sloping demand and upward sloping supply. And so then at equilibrium, we have some equilibrium quantity of dollars being exchanged in the market, right? Whatever that equilibrium quantity is. And then over here, and what's probably more important, we have the exchange rate, right? How many euros are currently going to be exchanged for a dollar, right? That's what we were talking about in the last video with exchange rates. So we'll say for right now, it is 4 euro per slash dollar. So right now, for every dollar that Europeans want, they have to give up 4 euros to the Americans to get a dollar. That is the current exchange rate. You're going to be dealing with a lot of supply and demand graphs for foreign exchange markets. And one question students often have is, well, what market is this, right? And there are two ways to know which market this is in terms of what currency is being exchanged in the market. You can look in one of two places. You can either look here, quantity of dollars, but sometimes it'll just say Q, so that may not always be helpful. But what will always tell you what currency is being exchanged in the supply and demand graph is this part. Look for the per. Whatever comes after the per or the slash, that is the currency being exchanged in the market. So because the word dollar appears after per or the slash, we know that this is the dollar market. So again, this video is really just about setting up the graph. In the next video, we're going to talk more about shifting curves and what that means and everything else. So again, we're just kind of building up to greater and greater heights of knowledge here. So again, we have equilibrium quantity, however many dollars are going to be exchanged in this market between Americans and Europeans. And then over here, we have the exchange rate, so how many euros currently are needed to be exchanged for $1, right? And it's always per a single dollar, right? Now, be thinking, we could also find the exchange rate for a euro, right? Because if we know that there are 4 euro needed to get $1, we could divide by 4 on both sides, and we know that to get 1 euro, you need 1/4 of a dollar, or 25 cents, right? So again, if you have one exchange rate, you can get the other by doing the simple math that I showed here. Next, what I want to do is look at each curve individually and talk a little bit about what we can know just by looking at one curve. So let's start with demand. We can see it's downward sloping here. And so with demand, this represents foreigners. Foreigners are the people who demand dollars in this case. They want dollars. They're providing their currency to get dollars, right? They're giving up euros. They want dollars to buy that country's goods and services, America's goods and services in this case, right? So they are using their currency to buy another country's currency in order to buy that country's goods and services. So Europe is buying American dollars to buy American stuff. And we can see that there's an inverse relationship between the exchange rate and the quantity of the dollar demanded in this case. People are more willing to buy a country's currency if they have to give up less of their own, right? So if we go back to the graph here, we can see that, for example, if the exchange rate were down here at maybe 2 euro per dollar, then what we see is that, well, there's going to be a lot more currency demanded by the Europeans because they don't have to give up as many euros to get the dollar. They're going to want more dollars because they don't have to give up as many euros of their own money to get those American dollars. So the lower the exchange rate, the more of that foreign currency the Europeans, in this case, are going to want. And so that's how demand works. Demand represents the foreigners, okay? Supply then represents the domestic residents, people living in the country that have the currency that's being exchanged in the market. And so these are domestic residents who want to sell their country's currency in exchange for the foreign currency being brought by the foreigners on the demand side of the graph. And we can see that there's a positive relationship between the exchange rate and the quantity of currency supplied. People are more willing to supply their own currency if they're going to get more of the foreign currency in exchange. So, for example, if we go back to the graph, and I'll use a different color this time, if we're way up here and the exchange rate is like 7 euro per dollar, then what we see is that there is a far greater amount of currency, dollars, going to be supplied by the Americans because they know they're going to get even more euros in exchange for every one of the dollars they supply to the Europeans. So that's how supply and demand work in the foreign exchange market. The key thing to remember, supply represents domestic residents living in the country where the currency that is being exchanged in the market originally resides. And then demand represents foreigners who want to buy that foreign currency. So demand is foreigners, supply is domestic residents living in the country where the currency the market is for is. So again, I would encourage you to rewatch the video as much as you need. Make sure you understand what is supply, what is demand. How do we know what market how do we know which currency market it is? Remember, we look at the per, find the slash. Whatever comes after that, that is the currency being exchanged in that market. So that's all for this video on drawing the foreign exchange market Until next time, have a great day.